Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into another fascinating topic?
Always. What are we exploring today?
Well, this time we're tackling quality auditing, that process organizations use to kind of check and make sure everything's running smoothly and up to standard.
Quality auditing. Sounds like a pretty critical part of, well, pretty much any successful operation.
Exactly. And we've got a ton of resources here to help us unpack it. Guides for professional certifications, expert opinions, real-world examples, the whole shebang.
Sounds like a great mix. I'm always curious to see how theory translates into practice.
Me too. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with the basics. For those who might not be familiar, what exactly is a quality audit?
Hmm. How to put it simply? It's like a systematic examination.
Systematic.
Yeah. You're looking at a product, a process, or even a whole system to see if it actually meets the standards it needs to.
Okay, so it's kind of like a detective meticulously going through evidence, but instead of crimes, they're making sure quality is like top-notch. But I'm guessing it's not just one type of audit, right? Our sources mention product, process, even something called a desk audit, which I gotta admit, sounds kind of intriguing.
Yeah, definitely not one size fits all when it comes to audits. It's more like, picking the right tool for the job, depending on what you're trying to examine.
So like a tasting menu of audits, what would, say, a product audit be like?
A product audit. Picture this. You've got a new smartphone model, right?
hmm
A product audit would be like zooming in really close up on that phone, checking to make sure it meets all the design specs, functions perfectly, no defects, nothing like that.
Makes sense. So if a product audit is the close-up, is a process audit more like a wider shot?
Yeah, you got it.
Hmm.
A process audit looks at the whole system used to create that smartphone. So like every step from manufacturing to the software development, making sure it's all done right, efficient, and consistent.
Gotcha. So then a system audit, that's the widest view of all.
You got it. System audit is checking the organization's operating system, basically. Like, is the whole setup actually designed to achieve those quality goals they set?
Okay, I think I'm starting to get the picture of how these different audits fit together. But what about those desk audits you mentioned earlier? What makes those so special?
Desk audits. Those are kind of like deep dives into paperwork, I guess you could say.
Paperwork.
Yeah, like the auditor's making sure that all those documented procedures, all that stuff that's written down, is actually being followed in reality.
So it's like making sure the company actually walks the walk, not just talks the talk.
Exactly. Making sure what's on paper matches what's happening out there on the floor.
Makes sense. Now, our sources also mention that audits can be categorized by, like, who's actually doing the auditing. It's not always an inside job, right?
Right. It's like different levels of independence, I guess you could
Of
say.
dependence.
Yeah, like in a courtroom. So you've got first-party audits, which are basically self-assessments. The organization checks its own work.
So that's where being brutally honest with yourself comes in handy, even if it might sting a little.
Yeah, got to be objective. And then you've got second-party audits, where maybe a customer audits a supplier or the other way around. A little more at stake there, contracts, relationships, all that.
Right, and then there are those third-party audits. Those seem like the big leagues.
Definitely. Third party is the most independent. It's an outside organization, maybe a certification body or something, coming in to measure the organization against like a specific standard.
So that's where those ISO 9001 certifications and stuff come in, right? I've seen those logos, but never really grasped what they actually meant.
Yep, that's them. Those certifications give you that extra layer of assurance that someone independent checked things out, made sure the systems are up to those quality standards. Super important for industries where safety and reliability are, well, everything, like healthcare or, anything where the stakes are really high.
Okay, so we've got the different types of audits down, but now I'm curious about the, why. Why should anyone listening care about quality audits? It sounds like, I don't know, maybe something only big companies need to worry about.
See, that's where a lot of people get it wrong. The benefits of auditing apply to everyone, even on a personal level. Like, let's say you're planning a wedding, huge event, tons of moving parts. Thinking like an auditor could help you spot potential problems before they, ruin your big day.
Ooh, that's a good point. Like imagine realizing your venue double booked or the caterer can't handle your like gluten-free Aunt Mildred.
Exactly. Preventative measures, right?
Right.
And in a professional setting, well, audits can be even more critical, I'd say. They can, help you identify risks or maybe make things more efficient, boost customer satisfaction, even your bottom line. Audits can really impact the bottom line.
So they're not just about like pointing fingers and finding faults. It's more about making things better.
Totally. It's a powerful tool for continuous improvement. Like, think of it like getting feedback on your work. You might not always love what you hear, but it helps you grow and develop your skills.
Yeah, makes sense. But let's get into some of the nitty-gritty here. Our sources talk about some technical stuff when it comes to audits. Things like scope, criteria, roles. Can you break those down for us a bit?
Of course, let's start with scope.
Yeah.
Think of it like uh, drawing a circle around a specific area you want to examine.
Okay.
Like if you're auditing a company's manufacturing process, right? The scope might include, say, the factory floor, but not the accounting department, you know?
Gotcha. So it's like setting boundaries for the investigation, making sure everyone's clear on what's being looked at and what's not.
Exactly. Then you've got criteria.
Criteria.
Yeah, that's the yardstick you're using to measure
Yeah.
performance. It could be based on like industry standards, what customers want, or even the organization's own goals, what they're aiming for.
So like if you're auditing a restaurant for food safety, the criteria would come from local health regulations, something like that.
Exactly. Criteria tells you if something is compliant, if it meets those standards or not.
Okay, so we've got boundaries with the scope and rules of the game with criteria. But for a good audit, you also need the right players, right? What about those different roles involved?
Oh, absolutely. You've got the client, the one who's asking for the audit. Then there's the auditor, the person or team doing the investigating. And of course, the auditee, the organization or department being audited.
Sounds like a bit of a dance between those three, the client setting the stage, auditor leading the steps, and the auditee following along.
Uh-huh. That's a good way to put it. And just like any good dance, communication and collaboration, they're key.
Now, our sources also talk about ethics being super important for auditors. It's not just following the rules, it's about doing it with integrity, right?
Absolutely. Auditors, they have a huge responsibility. Dealing with sensitive information, making judgments that can have big consequences. So, yeah, ethical conduct, that's got to be a top priority.
For sure. So what are some of the key ethical considerations for auditors? Like, what do they need to keep in mind?
One of the biggest ones is independence. Auditors need to be free from any, conflicts of interest,
No.
anything that could make them less objective.
Right, like a referee who's also betting on the game. You wouldn't trust their calls, right?
Exactly. You need that impartial perspective.
Mm.
And then there's confidentiality. Auditors often have access to some pretty sensitive stuff, so they need to protect that information carefully.
Like a doctor-patient relationship, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, there's due diligence. That means being super thorough, really meticulous in gathering and analyzing the evidence.
So it's not just about like finding faults. It's about doing a fair and impartial investigation, right? And presenting those findings in a clear, professional way.
You got it. And hey, let's not forget the human element here. A good auditor needs strong people skills. They got to be able to communicate well with everyone, from the top to the bottom of an organization, build trust, encourage open and honest dialogue.
So it sounds like a quality auditor needs a unique mix of like technical expertise, ethical judgment, and people skills. That's a pretty impressive combo.
It is. But, it's not all just about the individual auditor anymore. Technology is playing a bigger role in the world of auditing.
That's true. One of our sources actually talks about a software called Smart Inspect 360. What can you tell us about that?
Smart Inspect 360. Oh, that's a great example of how tech is making auditing, smoother and better. It's like having a virtual assistant helping with everything from planning and scheduling to collecting data and making reports.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued. Can you break it down for us a bit? Like, how does this Smart Inspect 360 actually work?
So imagine this. Instead of carrying around like huge binders full of checklists, auditors use tablets or even their phones to capture data in real time. They can take photos, videos, even add voice notes all right there in the app. It makes things so much more efficient and accurate.
So no more struggling to read someone's messy handwriting or worrying about losing paperwork or having it get damaged. That's got to be a huge relief.
Oh, definitely. And it goes beyond just collecting data. Smart Inspect 360. It can actually analyze the data, spot trends, even create reports automatically.
Wow.
Frees up auditors to focus on the more, I guess you could say, the more thought-provoking stuff.
So like actually interpreting the findings, figuring out the root causes of problems, recommending solutions, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It's a perfect example of how tech is changing the game for auditors, making it, more efficient, more effective, and maybe even, dare I say, a bit more exciting.
I'd say so. Okay, we've covered a lot here. Different types of audits, the benefits, the technical stuff, ethics, even the role of technology. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to touch on one more thing: professional certifications. One of our sources really digs into the ASQ Certified Quality Auditor certification. What can you tell us about that?
The ASQ-CQA certification, that's a globally recognized thing, shows that someone really knows their stuff when it comes to quality auditing. It's like a stamp of approval telling potential employers or clients that you've met those high standards, that you really understand auditing inside and out.
So it's a way for auditors to like stand out, prove their credibility.
Exactly. The CQA, it covers everything from planning the audit and carrying it out to risk management, statistical analysis. It's not just about ticking boxes. It's about having a deep understanding of how to do audits right, effectively and ethically.
And what about those ethical considerations we talked about? Are those included in the CQA program as well?
Oh, absolutely. Ethical conduct is a huge part of the CQA certification. It stresses how important independence is, confidentiality, due diligence, all that stuff. Make sure those certified auditors are, you know, upholding those high standards.
That's good to hear. It really sounds like the CQA certification is a great asset for anyone serious about a career in this field.
Oh, definitely. It's like investing in your professional development, something that can pay off big time throughout your career.
As we've been talking about all this, it struck me how relevant these principles are to our everyday lives, not just in a corporate setting, but like personally.
Yeah, totally. It's not just about, official audits or big companies. It's more like a way of thinking, approaching any task or project with quality and improvement in mind.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this deep dive so valuable. It's not just learning jargon. It's about getting those insights that can help you make better decisions, solve problems, get better results in all parts of your life. So as we wrap up this deep dive into quality auditing, I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge.
Ooh, a challenge.
Hmm?
I like it. Lay it on me.
I think a lot of times we see audits as this like really formal thing, something that happens in like a stuffy corporate office.
Yeah, with all the clipboards, the checklists, maybe a little bit of a little nervous sweating thrown in there.
Exactly. But what if we shifted our perspective a little? What if we start thinking of those quality auditing principles as tools we can actually use ourselves in our own lives?
Yeah, that's interesting. I like where you're going with this.
Think about it, right? You're working on a personal project, could be anything, writing a book, planning a trip, even just trying to like build a new habit, a good one. You could use the same audit principles.
To what? Keep yourself on track?
Yeah, assess your progress, see where the roadblocks might be, make adjustments as you go.
So instead of waiting for someone else to audit our work, we become our own auditors.
Exactly. You define your scope, like what are you actually evaluating in this project, right? You set your criteria, what does success look like for you? And then you even like you gather your evidence. Maybe it's, I don't know, tracking your word count. If you're writing, researching destinations for a trip, keeping a food journal for that new habit.
It's like a structured, objective way to approach self-improvement.
Exactly. And it's not just about, hitting some specific goal. The actual process of like doing this self-audit, that can be super insightful.
Makes you really think, right?
Yeah. It forces you to think critically about your assumptions, maybe challenge some of your own biases, be open to doing things a new way, all kinds of benefits.
That's like holding a mirror up to yourself.
Yeah.
Your processes, your habits, even like your thought patterns.
That's a great way to put it. And who knows, maybe you'll discover you've got this hidden talent for auditing. Maybe you're a
Yeah.
quality auditor in the making and you don't even realize it yet.
There you go. So, to everyone listening, embrace your inner auditor, right? Look around at your work, your hobbies, your goals, whatever, and ask yourself, where could I use a fresh perspective?
Yeah. What could benefit from a little structured evaluation? What systems, what processes could I improve by using those quality audit principles?
It's amazing what a little structure and a curious mind can achieve.
Absolutely. So go forth and audit, everyone. And may your pursuit of quality lead you to some awesome new discoveries.
And until next time, keep on diving deep into those fascinating topics.